Yeah, we back. Yeah, we back. Now today's gonna be a quick video. I'm about to go on vacation soon, but I'm trying to pump out as many videos as I can. Now in today's video, I'm gonna be responding to a detractor in my comment section. It's basically gonna be a follow-up to the one I dropped the other day entitled Black Leftist Attacks Neferkare Dessalines. Now, in today's video, we have a Haitian leftist. I'm assuming he's a leftist. Also coming at me in the comment section. And just like yesterday, when we put Simon Bolivar in the hot seat, we're going to be putting another individual in the hot seat as well. We're going to be examining their legacy, right? President Jean-Pierre Boyer, the Haitian president from the year 1820 to 1843. But anyways, let's get into this comment that I got. This individual said this: "Your diatribe is a dishonest mixture of ignorance and plain old lying. Let me quote Dessalines to you, since you don't know or pretend not to know how he felt about the oppression of all human beings." All right. Now, listen, you already know, time out. You already know over here, it's black first, it's African first. He's telling me the oppression of human beings. So we already know where he going with it. Now, let's continue. "Let me quote Dessalines to you, since you don't know or pretend not to know how he felt about the oppression of all human beings. Dessalines said, 'I did my duty. I have saved my country. I have avenged America.' Please tell your admirers what Dessalines meant by avenging America. What do you think he meant when he called his army the Inca army or the Sons of the Sun? Seeing that the Polish were recruited to re-enslave the people of Saint-Domingue under false pretense, did Dessalines massacre them or allow them to settle among his people? 221 years after his victory over the French, the descendants of the Polish still live in Haiti." Now, time out. Now, when Dessalines said, I just want to clarify so there's no confusion. When Dessalines said, "I have avenged America," he says, "I have avenged the Americas, the continent of America, not the present day United States." Now, anyways, the first red flag, he's telling me about human beings, right? Number two, the second red flag, he's over amplifying the contribution played by the few hundred white men who came from Poland, who the only reason they switched sides was because they were getting destroyed when they were on the side of the French. So they came over to the Haitian side to save their own lives, right? To save their own behind. That's the reason why they came over to the Haitian side, right? And to be honest, we killed more Polish than we allowed to integrate into our society, right? When you compare the amount of Polish that we killed, in the thousands compared to the, few hundred that were integrated after the revolution, for you to try to amplify the role played by these tiny little fraction of a Polish when they only came into the story in 1803, but the revolution already started back in 1791. So that means for the first 12 years, they weren't even there, but you're trying to amplify the role of this tiny contingent of white men who barely did anything meaningful in the whole story. And let's be honest, if the French ended up victorious, they would have stayed on the side of the French. The Polish were simply going to go with whoever was victorious, and due to the fact that the tide was on the favor of the Haitians, they decided to switch sides to save their lives, because they already witnessed thousands of their fellow countrymen already die on the field of battle, already fall under the swords of the Haitian soldiers. So that's why they switched sides. Anyway, let's continue. He said, "All whites who did not claim that it was their right to lord it over others due to their quote-unquote superiority were allowed to take up Haitian citizenship." Now, time out. That's false. Under Dessalines' original 1805 Constitution, it explicitly says, and I quote, "No white man, of whatever nation he may be, shall set foot on this territory with the title of master or proprietor." And on top of that, the Constitution explicitly banned white men from owning land or engaging in high-level commerce. So you're talking about white men were allowed to gain citizenship, but they couldn't even own land. They couldn't even really engage in commerce, and they were not even allowed to set foot on the territory with the title of master or proprietor. So again, I don't know what you're talking about, but you can already get a certain gauge of this guy's mentality based on the language, right? He said, "Oh, we got to stand with human beings," right? Anyway, let's continue. He went on to say, "Anybody of whatever color fleeing oppression was welcome. I know of no Haitian government that created a color litmus test in the entirety of Haiti's history. If you know otherwise, please provide the evidence." Now he says anybody of whatever color fleeing oppression was welcome. But what was the color of the people that was under oppression? You're trying to make it seem like a white man from Alabama could just show up on the Haitian shores back in 1807 and he talking about I'm under oppression, and you think he's going to be welcomed in as family. No, he's not. He's probably going to be placed under arrest. Now, anyway, let's continue. He went on to say, "I don't care about your ideology. I care about your distortion of Haitian history to push your point of view. The fact that Simon Bolivar was an ungrateful racist does not invalidate the Haitian tradition of standing with the oppressed. Dessalines, Pichon, and Boyer, respectively, backed Francisco de Miranda, Simon Bolivar, and the Greeks in their struggle for independence because the Haitian Revolution was the most consistent era of the Enlightenment. Now, in today's video, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Haitian government showing love to the Greeks during their battle for independence, right? And that's why we're going to talk about the guy on the screen to the left, President Jean-Pierre Boyer, because he was the one that was in power when that took place. When it comes to me on my channel, you never hear me talking about that because just like all these other individuals, just like, you know, Simon Bolivar and the rest of them, as soon as they get on their feet, all of a sudden the anti-blackness takes center stage. So, you know, you don't ever hear me talking about, you know, showing love to the Greeks and things like that. I think that was stupid, especially when Jean-Pierre Boyer was failing to uplift the black masses in his own country, right? See, that's that backwards mentality of this leftist ideology. You're talking to me about the Haitian government under the administration of Jean-Pierre Boyer that gave assistance to the Greeks, but they weren't even uplifting the black masses in the country, right? He only wanted to uplift his own fellow mulatto elites while showing love to the Greeks, but the black masses in the country was living in poverty. Oh, okay. Yeah, but you're talking about we got to stand with human beings, but the blacks in his own country, he wasn't even standing with them. Now let's continue. He went on to say, Toussaint Louverture, Dessalines, and Christophe made extensive use of white people. So now, at first, he said the human beings. Then he tried to amplify the role of the Polish. Now he's saying, oh, the white people in the revolution, the white folks in the revolution made great contributions, right? Now we glorifying the contributions of the white man, right? Let's continue. Then he mentioned names like Joseph Bunel. Now, Joseph Bunel was a French merchant that was a close associate of Toussaint Louverture. Joseph Bunel, he was married to a black woman. Well, a woman of mixed race. I believe her father was a white colonist, but he was married to what would be classified in the modern day as a black woman. And he was also a close associate of Toussaint Louverture, serving as an intermediary to basically interface with other governments like the United States, the British government, the other colonies. He served kind of like the, you know, Minister of Foreign Affairs for Toussaint Louverture, right? So this guy, in an effort to kind of, you know, it's the leftist type of mentality, right? We got to hold hands with the white man too, right? I thought it was just the people of color, but apparently in the leftist ideology, we also have to hold hands with the white man too. That's crazy. So he's talking about Joseph Bunel, right? Now, Joseph Bunel, like I said, he was married to a woman of color. So basically, he's trying to amplify the contribution of this one white man above the legions and hundreds of thousands of black men that made contributions during the entire revolution, right? He's talking to me about Polish men that only arrived at the very end. He's talking to me about a white man that married a black woman. He's talking to me about human beings. I mean, this guy, he's all the way lost in the sauce in the leftist ideology, man. Let's continue. Toussaint Louverture, Dessalines, and Christophe made extensive use of white people like Joseph Bunel and people of color like de Vasty and Jean-Lat. Now, Vasty, Baron de Vaté, that's an individual I always talk about on my channel. I always show love to Vasty. Vasty was a mulatto, right? Vasty, he called him a person of color in the comment. Vasty was a mulatto, you know, white father, black mother. But Vasty, I got love for Vasty. You know why? Because he was one of those mulattoes that was so proud of his African heritage, that was so proud of his blackness, that when the mulatto generals established a republic in the South, Vasty could have went to the South and joined the mulatto elites, right? He could have joined the mulatto generals in the South, but Vasty went up north with Christophe, with the black generals, right? Yeah, Jean-Lat, he went up north with Christophe with the black generals, right? You definitely had those mulattoes like Vasty, like Jean-Lat that was up in the kingdom of Haiti. Yeah, so I always show love to those brothers. I show love to those brothers that when it came time to choose, they chose their mother side of the family. You see them boys down south, they chose their father side of the family. That's always gonna be my issue with them, right? But I never had no issue. I always show love to Vasty in damn near every single video. If I talk about Christophe, you guarantee I got to talk about Vasty because Vasty was his right-hand man, right? When Christophe was riding in the carriage, Vasty was right next to him. When Christophe was up in the palace drinking, smoking, Vasty was right there, you know, cracking jokes and talking business. Vasty, when you seen Christophe, you seen Vasty. So I never had no issue with mulattoes like Vasty, Jean-Lat. Never had no issues with those brothers. I only had issue with certain mulatto generals like Boyer, Pichon, things like that, Andre Rigaud, certain individuals, right? So I don't got no problem with the mulattoes that when it came time to choose, they chose the right side. I don't got no issue with them brothers, but I'm not gonna amplify the role of no random white man like Joseph Bunel just because he married a black woman. Get out of here, brother. Anyways, I responded to his comment and I said this: You seem to have a lot of sympathies and connections to non-African people. President Boyer wasting state resources on helping the Greeks after he destroyed the economy, he destroyed the fort building projects, he closed all Christophe schools, and destroyed Christophe's massive treasury simply reinforces my position on the stupidity of your ideology. Boyer was stupid, and Dessalines had a good heart, but he was misguided. And the fact that you amplified a role played by the tiny minority of French men and Polish men above the majority of black men already lets me know you have multiple allegiances and most likely are a descendant of those foreign men. I seen all your emails about Boyer. You are a Boyerist sympathizer and I'm a Christophe royalist. Your ideology is garbage and most likely the reason why the Southern generals like Bichon and Boyer never created a powerful state. Your man Boyer was still a garbage leader. I might respond to you in a video. Now, President Jean-Pierre Boyer, take a look up on the screen. That's the guy to the left. That's who we're going to be talking about today, right? Because this guy right here, in the comment I mentioned emails, right? I've gotten emails from this guy before, right? He always emails me whenever, I say something that's not flattering to President Jean-Pierre Boyer. I don't know if that's his great grandfather. I don't know, man. I don't know. But obviously, he's very invested in the legacy of President Jean-Pierre Boyer. That's why he also inserted him into the comment multiple times, things like that. But we're gonna get to him later. I want to talk about how he said that Dessalines had provided assistance to Francisco de Miranda. I believe that was the Venezuelan military leader. Francisco de Miranda, one of the original, Latin American liberation fighters, and he also received assistance from Dessalines. I'm not going to fault Dessalines for that. You think Dessalines knew that these guys was going to establish an anti-black society once they got on their feet? Dessalines did not know that back in 1806 or whenever that took place. Dessalines did not know that these guys from Latin America were simply going to take all the assistance and go establish an anti-black racial caste system in their home countries. He did not know that, right? He probably, if that was the case, he probably would not have gave the assistance, but he did not know that back in 1805, 1806, right? He did not know that. So the ancestor didn't have the 2020 vision that we have in the modern day now, where we could look back in hindsight. Right. So I'm not going to fault him for that when he seen Francisco de Miranda come through and, he gave him the guns and the assistance. I'm not going to fault the ancestor for that. I'm not going to fault the ancestor for that. We are dealing in modern times, in modern context, analyzing things that have passed since then. But anyways, I want to go back to he mentioned Haitian supporting the Greek struggle for independence. Right. I want to talk about that. That's something I never talk about on my channel because I think it was stupid. But anyway, let's get into it. 2 years before the United States congressional debate on January 15th, 1822, Haiti was the first country to recognize the independence of Greece. President Jean-Pierre Boyer, in a letter to the Greek revolutionaries in Paris, proclaimed that the Greek citizens, indicating they were no longer Ottoman subjects, but members of a new independent polity. Boyer explained that had the Haitians not been facing dire financial problems of their own, they would have surely helped the Greeks. In his letter, Boyer regretted that the financial situation of his country made any financial support impossible, but extended his warm wishes for the success of the War of Independence. Here is a translation of the original letter written in French. Boyer said, "Wishing to the heavens to protect the descendants of Leonidas, we thought to assist these brave warriors, if not with military forces and ammunition, at least with money, which will be useful for acquisition of guns, which you need. But events that have occurred and imposed financial restrictions onto our country absorb the entire budget, including the part that could be disposed by our administration. Moreover, at present, the revolution which triumphs on the eastern portion of our island is creating a new obstacle in carrying out our aim. In fact, this portion, which was incorporated into the republic I preside over, is in extreme poverty and thus justifies immense expenditures of our budget. If the circumstances as we wish improve again, then we shall honorably assist you, the sons of Hellas, to the best of our abilities." Symbolically, Haiti sent 45 tons of coffee to be sold with the proceeds intended for the purchase of rifles and other ammunition, and also sent 100 Haitian volunteers, all of whom tragically died during the voyage to Greece. Now, that is a story that's been passed down through the generations. Now, if you go back to my response that I gave to the guy in the comment section, you'll see that I had said, President Boyer wasting state resources on helping the Greeks after he destroyed the economy, he destroyed the fort building projects, closed all of Christophe's schools, and destroyed Christophe's massive treasury simply reinforces my position on the stupidity of this ideology. Now, as you already know, From the year 1807, the nation was split into two governments, the kingdom in the north and the republic in the south. Now, after Christophe died and the kingdom fell, Jean-Pierre Boyer came to power, right? Jean-Pierre Boyer, the military leader from the South. The South has always been a stronghold of the mulatto generals. Now, for those of y'all that have been following my channel, I'm sure you already know about the days of the Kingdom of Haiti, the productivity, the massive infrastructure projects, the massive building projects, the extreme high level of commerce. The treasury was packed, filled to the brim. When Christophe died, they discovered billions of dollars of gold stashed away in the treasury, you know, endless supply of sugar and coffee and cocoa that's ready to be for sale, and endless storehouses of food and that can feed the entire population. It was crazy, right? It was crazy. So when Christophe died and President Jean-Pierre Boyer came to power, he inherited a well-oiled machine, right? He inherited a massive treasury. He inherited a massively productive economy. He inherited schools and universities. He inherited theaters, a printing press. Christophe left a lot behind, right? And the reason why you see all of Christophe's constructions, all of his projects, his palace, his citadel currently in ruins, that's because President Jean-Pierre Boyer, when he came to power, because Christophe was his rival, Christophe was his enemy, he wanted to erase Christophe's name from the chapters of history. So he changed the names of all of Christophe's monuments. The citadel was originally called Citadel Henry Citadel. He changed the name to Citadel La Ferrière, right? The capital in the north was originally called Cap Henry, right? The Cap Henry. Now he changed the name to Cap Haitian. All of Christophe's theaters and art academies, he closed them. Christophe's University, the School of Medicine and Languages and Mathematics, he abolished them. All of Christophe's building projects, he closed them. He let the citadel and the palace fall into ruins. That's why in the modern day, when you go to the palace is in ruins. The palace is destroyed because all of the maintenance was stopped as soon as Jean-Pierre Boyer came to power. But as you can see, this brother in the comment section talking to me about how President Jean-Pierre Boyer showed love to the Greeks, the anti-black Greeks. But he didn't even uplift the black masses in his own country, in his own territory. And I'm gonna get even deeper. That's part of the reason why the Dominicans have a resentment, and some even have a hatred towards us, because when we were bonded as one country under the leadership of Jean-Pierre Boyer, he was such a terrible leader. He was such a bullshit leader. He was such an abominable leader that the Dominicans always point to his administration as the reason why some of them have negative feelings towards Haitians. But they don't even know Jean-Pierre Boyer, he also had the black Haitians also living under squalor, living under mulatto dictatorship. A lot of Dominicans take the administration of Jean-Pierre Boyer and try to cast that upon all Haitians, but they don't even know the black masses in Haitian society, we were also suffering at the exact same time. It was not only the Dominicans. Like I said, he closed down Christophe's schools. He closed down Christophe's universities. The Dominicans said the same exact thing. He closed down their schools. He closed down their institutions. He did the same thing to us when it came to the black masses in Haiti. So like I said, Jean-Pierre Boyer wasting his time helping out the Greeks, but he wasn't even uplifting the black masses in his own country. That's why this ideology is garbage. Now, I will say there are two things that Jean-Pierre Boyer did that I respect him for, even though overall, like I said, abominable leader, terrible leader. But one thing that I like that he did by encouraging, you know, black folks, you know, especially those from the United States to, you know, come to the country, you know, come seek refuge, right? And a lot of black Americans actually came to the country. It's like a small little community of descendants, I think, in the modern day Dominican Republic. You got to remember, back then it was one country. The DR in Haiti at that time under Boyer was one nation. So there were black Americans during the reign of Boyer that came to the island. And right now in the modern day, some of their descendants currently live in the Dominican territory, right? So that's one thing he did that could be classified as Pan-Africanist. Something else that he did was he kicked out the Catholic Church, right? He kicked out the Catholic Church, but I'm not going to give him the credit for that. I'm going to give his wife the credit for that, right? His wife, I believe her name was Jute Lachenette, right? Because she was deep into the voodoo. She was deep into the African spirituality. So she told her man, listen, get the Catholic Church the hell up out of here. And, you know, him being the man that he was, yes, baby, I'll go ahead and do it. You know, the women down south, when it came to President Alexander Pichon, when it came to President Jean-Pierre Boyer, do you know they had the same exact wife? Do you know after Alexander Pichon died, his wife, Jute Lachenette, ended up getting with President Jean-Pierre Boyer? right? So she was with 2 presidents. And those guys, man, the women down south, they was running them. So, you know, when the women said do something, they did it. You know, they wasn't players like the boys up north, like Dessalines and Christoph. You see, they was some players. You feel me? Yeah, no, I'm joking, but I'm not joking for real. I'm telling the truth. But yeah, man, those are 2 things he did under his leadership that I would say I approve of those policies. You know, I salute those policies, right? When he kicked out the Catholic Church, and then when he invited, you know, the Black Americans and the other blacks from the different territories to come settle in the country, right? He opened his doors to the blacks seeking refuge. So, you know, I salute him for that. But when it came to pretty much everything else that he did, terrible leader, awful leader, abominable leader, and like I said, he could not hold a candle to the leadership and the political and economic acumen of Christoph and guys like that. I'm sorry to tell you, you know, I'm sorry to tell you. And that's probably why he was so jealous of Christoph. That's why he tried to erase Christoph's names from all the monuments and erase his name out of the history books, because he was jealous of Christoph, man. You know, he was jealous, man. You know, Christoph living in that massive palace, Christoph up in the massive citadel, and all you had was some little rinky-dink governor's house. You know what I'm saying? Y'all boys wasn't doing it big like Christoph. You know, get out of here, man. You know, with that leftist garbage. See, Christoph was up north, man. Christoph was up north. A white man couldn't even go into the interior of the country without a passport, man. Meanwhile, in the South, under the leadership of Petro and Boyer, do you know that they allowed white Frenchmen to come and resettle back in the country, right? I remember Christoph wrote letters about that because Christoph deemed that as a matter of national security, because the mulatto generals down South were allowing white Frenchmen to come resettle back into the country, right? And he looked at as the enemy coming at our gates. Right. So meanwhile, in the North, like I said, a white man couldn't even come to the interior of the country without a passport. If he left the capital, he'd be arrested. And it's a reason why the Kingdom of Haiti was rich, prosperous, and productive, and the Republic of Haiti in the South was a garbage, failed state because of that garbage ideology, right? It's black first, baby. It's black first. And that's what Christoph understood. It was black first. Regardless, yes, we could engage in trade, commerce, and diplomacy, but Christoph knew it was black first. It was African first. That's why even in his letters, he always made references to the African man, not the human being, not the human man, the African man. So yeah, man, get it right. Get it right. Anyway, it's your boy Neferkare, Dessalines, back in the building. Yes, indeed. Cash App in the description. Support the channel. Support the Patreon. NCD 1814. Link in the description. Pinned comment at the top. Support the album Sahel 1816. Go to my homepage, go to my playlist section, and I'm gone. Peace.
Told me she loved me and said that it's real. So independent, ain't signing no deal. Feel like a king and I'm up at Cap Henry. I'm in the citadel, top of the hill. Trying to run up, but we let off a cannon. Secret location, I'm keeping it sealed. You ain't retaliate, Franco Medina came to the country and he got killed. You ain't retaliate, Rafi and Mans. Thought you was law, thought you was real. Didn't even want to come pick up the body. Had your man locked up, he died in the cell. Up at the palace, I'm throwing the party. Right on the South and I'm giving them hell. And my little shorty, she looking exotic. African features, she casting a spell. Run to the check like I work on my fitness. Wake up each morning and handle my business. Said that she love me, she want my genetics. Wanna get married and make it official. Wanna get married and have my babies. Up in the city, I'm riding Mercedes. Up in the city, they treat me like royalty. Feeling like Dolph, talking about lords. Spreading my wings and I had to get fly. Up in the top, an incredible vibe. Came from the bottom, I'm up in the sky. Everyone look and said, baby, you fine. Wake up each morning and handle my business. They just be talking, you see me, I live it. Ride on my enemies, sounding like thunder. 1804, got that shit in my spirit. 1804 when I step in the building. 1804, that's word of my mother. Rock my women and die for my brother. Never gon' fall when I'm deep under pressure. Tell them we back and they better accept it. Move like a king, every step is divine. Ride on my enemies with no exception. Taking revenge and I'm taking what's mine. Pour up a drink and it's time that we toast. Watching my back, keep my enemies close. Only the family, I stick with my brothers. Cannon's position outside of the coast. Heavy artillery for the protection. Move like a general, stick to the code. Feel like a king when I'm up in the north. Beautiful women, they trying to get chose. Launch an invasion all over the South. Capture the capital with all my woes. Look at my energy and my demeanor. Dripping that ice and that's head to my toes. Lately I'm flexing all on the Americans. Flexing my muscle on missing my road. Just got a carriage just coming from London. Boy, that shit cash, I ain't taking no loans. Boy, that shit cash, that's fresh on the boat. Enemy know I got millions in gold. Enemy know I got choppers and cannons. How did I do it? They can't understand it. How did I do it? It's cause I'm relentless. Call me King Harry, my name is cemented. Call me King Harry, I'm up in the palace. Call me King Harry, I'm raising the status.